Hello, welcome back. Welcome back to another filming stories. I just did the video about the announcement, and now I'm here to talk about the short itself and talking about a lot of the stuff that went down. And yeah, excuse me if I seem a little just tired. I just had like a large meal, so I just sounds really weird and stuff like that. But I just had a big meal and a little now on the more tired side, and I've also lately have been dealing with some anxiety because I just this past month, like I said in the announcement video, I just had a lot of stuff going on. Some of which you guys are familiar with. The film festival thing that happened a few, I think, yeah, like last week. Um, Bunch of stuff that was happening at work as well. Just had some weird stuff going on there, which I won't get into, but stuff that's resolved, so that's good. And then, other private little things I like to do here and there, reading, surfing, stuff that I'm still trying to work on. I know someone was asking me about reading, comics, about Batman Dark Victory. Still working on that. I just, got some stuff going on, other things that I also like to do with my time. So, but and also like I don't know if I had said also, but a new job opportunity maybe also in the future. I don't know. We'll see how that all pans out. But in the midst of all this, I had worked on another short with my good friend Sebastian, who I've said before. I don't know if I ever said on camera, but he's in some ways like a third brother to me. I think he is just a really really awesome human being. I think he's really very sweet, very charming, and is um, unknowingly talented. He just when he gets behind the camera, I can trust that he is going to get you know things that I didn't even consider, and it just looks great always when I'm working with him. Um, and I say unknowingly because like he doesn't operate in the space. He's not like a film guy. He's so much different. He has much different interests. But he he's told me he does love or really does like doing these sort of things with me. So it's always cool to see him and to work with him in that capacity. And just generally, I mean, we have awesome conversations with each other. Great conversations on philosophy and stuff like that. But we're talking about this project, so um, I can't exactly remember where it started. Like, I can't exactly remember when the idea came to fruition. I think this was in the midst of like working on other stuff, maybe, or maybe it's the same situation that happened with a lot of other projects where I was just either bored or just whatever, and then the idea just kind of came about. Um, Part of me also wants to say that I had an idea prior, that you know basically addressed the idea of as the film kind of addresses at the beginning. I don't know if I could say the word necessarily because I don't know if YouTube's fine with it, but when uh, the title "An Attempt," it's meant to be a double meaning. Especially within how the story plays out. It's meant to be taken as a double meaning, right? So, um, and I think that at some point I had thought of an idea that was just strictly to do with just the former versus just splitting the difference between the former and the latter of what's presented in this short. Um, Maybe that's where it came from. So I don't know, but I don't remember having. I don't recall exactly where it started. Right. I don't know where it all started, um, but yeah, eventually the idea came about, and it. I wanted to have some sort of humorous underbelly to it. I didn't want to just be, you know, solely that of, uh, bleakness, because the subject matter can lean into that, and or lend itself to that absolutely. I mean, it's a very very bleak subject, but um, but I wanted there to be some kind of levity. So that's where I believe the teddy bear came into the conversation, or came into the the whole development of figuring it out sort of thing. Um, and then it came down to casting and stuff like that, and I was not wanting to actually do the stuff on camera. That was not actually my that actually wasn't my intentions. I actually was looking for somebody else to take on that role because I wanted to see somebody else in that capacity and what they can bring to it. And I had spoken to a friend of mine and a friend of Sebastian's also. Yeah, his name's Orion, and he is a legitimate actor. He actually got accepted into the Actors Academy here, the local academy here, uh, where I live, and you know he you know he just had something to him that I felt would have been very interesting to present, and the confines of what this role was supposed to be, So I thought it'd be kind of neat, to see him, perform, and I did a little, I guess you could say like a mini audition with him, and it would have worked, and then he's he I think he's leaps and bounds, especially now going to the Actors Academy. I think he's going to be just well more equipped, to handle, performance as it stands. I just do whatever, I'm not particularly great, I just do what I can. And, especially now, more so nowadays, because, back then, when I was like a little bit younger, I would, I would take it like very, very seriously, and it's to compensate for my lack of, acting chops, so, but you know, I did what I could because Orion, unfortunately, our schedules could never coincide, because he has a family and also he's was just accepted into the Actors Academy, so the stars never aligned there, and at that point, then I had to take over for the role, and I started working on the project, and me and Sebastian actually, because eventually, I originally it was supposed to be just me and Orion working on this. I was going to be doing all the camera work, and then Orion would be doing all the performance bits, and unfortunately, that didn't come into fruition. So then I had to take on doing the performance end. So I then leaned towards, or reached out to Sebastian about maybe wanting to work again because we've worked together, and like I said, I think he is really, really just 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 great. Great. Sorry, my throat. um, I think he's very great, and he's also really fun and just cool to hang out with. So I think we were able to actually carve out a day, and uh, we were able to get a lot of it done because some of it I got done on my own time, and then a large chunk of it, basically the rest of the project, it was actually done in one day, and we it was very public, this time around, which was a major difference compared to the other shorts. This was a more public setting. Because at one point, I and the teddy bear, was like walking around the specific area, this very public area, walking through a crosswalk and all that sort of stuff. And it was interesting to see, some people, come up and, interact with the camera. And we actually spoke to one guy. And I'll put his Instagram handle here. He actually also does filmmaking as well. And, I've seen some of his videos, and he showed us a little bit of his film too. And it's actually really, really interesting. So if you want to check him out, here's his Instagram handle right here. If you guys want to, support him and see what he's got cooking. But 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 yeah, it was definitely something that pushed. I think both me and Sebastian, I can't speak for him, but at least for me anyway, it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, and I just, it was off-putting, to be so public, because normally we're more it's more isolative, I'm just very away from all that. So to be almost in the middle of all that, it was, a little bit nerve-wracking, um, but still fun, still fun and enjoyable. Um, and then when we got to the end of it, it was, because all of it was done on basically on the fly. Like I had a thought of where things would go, but ultimately it was just kind of figuring things out, um, and we eventually got to the end, and I had it thought of just I wanted this and that, and Sebastian does what he does, and we get to the very very last shot of the short, and uh, it probably is actually really interesting to tell you that that was only one take. There was no other takes that we did, because I wanted things done, specifically, with the lighting and stuff like that. So we just had to wait because we ended up getting the stuff that we needed the from the crosswalk and all the other footage, going into the music store, which actually that wasn't planned at all. We were actually just walking away. We just finished up everything, and then Sebastian suggested, "Hey, let's just go into the music store and let's see if they'll let us film there." And and we did, and they were very kind to actually let us film in there. So, um, but but eventually, we came down to getting this last shot, and um, we we didn't rehearse it at all. I mean, I just if actually some funny bits with that funny shot with that last shot. Um, we I was supposed to play the song that you hear at the end, like there, right? I was supposed to play it actually there because I had Sebastian with headphones on, the headphones that I wore at the beginning. I put them on his on around his neck, and what I was supposed to do was that I was supposed to play the song because the camera was like super close to my face, so you wouldn't be able to see my hands. So if you saw my hands, I actually had pulled out my phone and I was trying to play the song, but the song could not play for some reason. So I had to work through memory. I had to remember exactly how long that song plays, and then at the same time try to push myself out to to dance and stuff like that. And I mean, admittedly, I felt at the beginning I was like, I'm not really, I'm not pushing myself hard enough. So eventually, I did kind of let myself go a little bit, and and we we finished, and then I was trepidatious a little bit just because I had some nitpicks about how I my expressions and stuff like that. But at the end of it, I what I thought was more about what we had gotten as a whole, you know, because that's been my motto mostly, I guess, for these last few shorts is just go for an idea, don't be worried about all the details in the world, because I'll be the first to tell you it's like the short is not it's not perfect by any means, right? I mean, there's things here and there that you can point to, maybe something to do with the audio or this and that. It's not perfect, right? Totally acknowledge that. um, my mo was more to do with achieving an idea and finding what is good for said moments within that story, and not just making it the most technically flawless thing in the world. You know, there are definitely, flaws in that department. I will be the first to acknowledge that. But what was ultimately achieved, in that way, I felt was very satisfactory for me. That last shot specifically, I was very very worried about that shot. I mean, generally how it's made, it looks great, you know, um, but I was just worried, because the timing of that shot also couldn't have been more perfect because we we had to reshoot the bench part. We had to reshoot that because the lighting had changed from the time that we had gotten another shot. The big wide shot of the bench that was darker than the other shots, so we had to reshoot those other close-ups. And then immediately after that is when we did that big take of the dancing and the running and all that. And again, only done in one take, so it just all worked out well, you know. And then putting it through the editing, through the edit, I just felt like this just worked really, really well, So any shortcomings I may have had in my performance, I was like, you know what, I think that there's other things here that are just working really, really well, and I just think that you know, detaching a little bit from that perfectionist part of myself and just allowing the thing to play out, I think is more beneficial than having to work through it. Because that once I get on that little perfectionist kick, it just it could get really, really like uh, it could get in the way of moving forward. So. But then it came down to the voice of the bear because I did the editing and everything else, did the audio, all that. Then it came down to getting the voice, and originally I had wanted. I think originally it was going to be me, and then eventually, I did. Yeah, eventually, it was. At the end of the day, but then I had thought, because then Orion couldn't make it, because I wanted there to be some kind of distinction between me and the bear or whoever was acting in it from the bear, um, and uh, I was originally gonna speak to someone that Sebastian knew, and I was thinking for more youthful, lighter voice, someone who had a little more spirit and more energy to counteract, what is happening with this subject, this the actual real person. Um, but because of the timing, again, I had to uh, I had to do. I ended up doing it myself, and a lot of what you're hearing is just mostly based on observations of the shots and also just trying to create that levity, you know and balancing out the what else is happening with that with the character, with the attempt per se that happens at the beginning. There's almost a necessity of levity that is required, and that's where I try to create that through the voice. And the voice is using a voice changer. And just to be very, very clear, and I made sure, to know that this is what it was. It is not AI, just so we understand, because I know there's a lot of voice changers and modulators that I guess operate AI tools. This one I've used is called a voice. What was it called? Voice changer. Uh, I'll leave the name here. It's just it's not some like big company voice changer. It's a very specific thing. And my bro and I looked at it, tentative, very, very carefully, and we found out that there are AI tools, but specifically how I was using it with just recording the audio as it stands, they don't use any AI tools within the recording process or within my customizing of the pitch. It's not using AI tools. It's just standard stuff. So just so we're clear on that, because I don't want to use AI stuff. I'd rather just use, regular, pitching and modulations, whatever, rather than having to operate on AI stuff. That's just my personal preferences. Um, no knock to anyone who does that. That's just not not what I would use personally. So then I that's what ended up happening with that with the teddy bear. And I think at some point I thought about maybe using my little brother also, but I just feel like his voice is starting to develop a little bit more deeper. So I wanted there to be a lighter voice somewhere. So and eventually it was put all together, and that's that. That's that. I mean, it was more just in terms of just trying to progress, and the big thing, like I said, coming out of it was really just not worrying so much about certain things and just keep on moving forward. As long as you're getting the base of what you're looking for and the other things surrounding it are working, then that should be enough for you. If even if maybe if your expressions are not exactly 100% to your liking, or this and that, it's like if you're getting like about 85 to 90% of what you're looking for, then that 10% should not kill you. You shouldn't have to worry so much about that. And that also fell into my editing, when it came to the audio and everything else. I was looking at what was important for that moment, not necessarily getting to the most technically craft like sound thing ever. Like, no, that's not what I was looking for this. But obviously, if that's an issue for you, obviously relay that in the comments. I'm not saying that just because that's how I went about it doesn't mean that all of a sudden it should be ignored. No, if it's an issue, then it's an issue, right? So, but but yeah, that is everything that went down with this. Huge thank you to Sebastian, and huge thank you to Orion as well. I know that he really he was interested in doing this, and just unfortunately the schedule did not align. He would have done better, than what I did. He would have done much better, um, but he is off doing what he is doing, and he's gonna be he's working in the Actors Academy, so we might see him in a movie someday, like in the big screen or whatever. So, um, but yeah, that is the whole experience. It was again kind of spontaneous, how it's always been, but also a bit more challenging, in terms of just putting myself out there in a more public setting, kind of pushing myself out of my comfort zone in some ways. So it was fun and in some ways challenging, and to its core very spontaneous in terms of just its overall just birth. So, but yeah, that is everything. And like I said, I'm gonna take a little break, just because I just don't have it in me right now to really like think of anything. I mean, obviously, if something comes about, then it is what it is, right? Um, but I'm just looking just to also just ride out my summer, just go have fun and just chillax and whatever and stuff like that. And also, like I said, things are kind of in a weird point, with my job. I might be getting an opportunity soon and stuff like that. So we'll see. We'll see where things go in the future. But for now, thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys, check this out, cool. If you're interested in watching the short, check it out. If not, hey, nothing wrong with that. It is what it is. If you, just don't care, that's totally fine. Um, but yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Again, sorry if I seem a little out of it. I had ate so much, and now I just feel so like, ugh. And, again, my anxiety has been all over the place. So I've been having some tea and stuff like that. So just more mellow. So, but thank you guys for tuning in, and until then, I will catch you guys. We'll see in the next video. Maybe another filming stories. Maybe not. Who knows? We'll see what the future holds in that department. But in any event, hope you guys are having an awesome summer, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.